Oh, it's all helpful in trying to do that. All the seminars here, I think, are, man, they're just putting gas in the tank as far as I'm concerned. I'm just full of all this ideas and energy of how we can use, how I can use when I'm seeing these other speakers put forth. And I'm getting a lot of good ideas about getting it into a smaller format and knocking on doors and just shooting the 3 points and smiling and shaking a hand. Because despite all of this wonderful technology, I'm just a big believer in human interaction and human energy. I think that this election specifically in Belknap County, for me, in District 8, people have voted for my opponent without understanding the person that the opponent is, without understanding where his voting record is, without understanding what he stands for. They've just been listening sort of to seeing the name and sort of checking the box and whatever. So my job is now to go out and reverse that by human. I'm strong, I think, in the human communication thing.
Well, it's all about communication. There's no doubt about that. But it's just understanding what avenues are. Technology is great. You know, I'm a techie at heart, and I like technology. But it's just trilling outside if you're not using it for a particular purpose. It just gives you another avenue to make that connection. And as I said before, going outside, watching people glued to their phones, and pretty soon, if Google Glasses makes it, you've got everything here.
Crazy. Now that's just nuts. Are you serious?
Oh yeah.
Oh no. I'll tell you something. For years, I have wanted to spend the money and have the computer. Well, back then it was going to be a computer on the belt. I was going to have a cording keyboard. When you watch the stenographers in court, but they're using 2 hands. You can buy keyboards that you can hold in 1 hand and then have the projection onto the eyeglasses. I've wanted to do that for years.
I know, you're a nerd.
There are even technologies out there that will use lasers to paint the image on the back of your retina.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Guys, this scares me. I think I don't know. Are we losing our humanity here?
No.
We're looking at the phone, walking down the street and falling into the little manhole covers. We've got to stop looking into the phone so much.
Well, that certainly has happened, and it makes for great YouTubes, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, but we're losing.
No,
we're
you're not.
losing connection.
No, you're not.
Because it's not 3-dimensional. It's a picture. It's not the human being that you touch. Look, if you're with a human, we cannot take place of that. Technology cannot take the place of human beings conversing together, because when I'm seeing it on the screen, I might be able to take something from the words and the inflection of how you say it. But there is an undefinable thing that happens person to person. There is an energy that you can't catch on that screen no matter how good you are. I'm convinced of it. And I think we're losing that. Our kids, my goodness, our kids. I told him
I think it's still a very good, I think it's a force multiplier though. I mean, I think that the simple fact is you can't be everywhere in Belknap.
True.
There's just no way. You can physically meet every voter.
Yeah.
And so you use technology, whether it's to reach
as a portion of it.
Your desired audience or people that might be friendly to your positions. I mean, there's no sense in wasting a lot of time going out and trying to convince folks that will never agree with you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
See, for you're in a different spot because you're running for a specific purpose, and you do have to make that human connection. There's no doubt about that. That you are more apt to win an election by just the pure purpose, the pure object, just showing up. It's like Woody Allen. 90% of success is just showing up. And that's what you're going to do by knocking on the doors. But it's time intensive, it's labor intensive, and it's also kind of, when it's pouring out and the lightning's coming down, not a pleasant thing to do.
Yeah, or when they're yelling at you or excoriating you for what you stand for. Sure.
And that's fine. That's part of what that particular job demands.
Right.
You have to do that. But for me, as a communicator, let me give you a story. I worked for Digital Equipment Corporation in the early 80s. And when I first arrived after working in the 80s, I was just blown away as a technician because they had 80,000 computers on one network, which not even IBM could do at that time. This was before the internet. This was all one huge worldwide network. And there were several technologies there that held things together. Email, obviously. There was this thing called video text, or VTX, which is what I was actually specializing in there. It was, think of it as an early version of a website. And then they had, forgetting the name. I want to say something like Deck Talk, not Deck Talk, but it was ability like a chat type of thing. And there were thousands of these things, thousands of these VTX sites and these chat areas, but they were given for technical issues, so that we can communicate. This is well before this collaboration stuff started coming up, but we could talk to folks worldwide about different technical problems and offer help and ask questions and things like that. Excuse me. And one of the things they said, if you ever leave deck, one of the things you're going to feel is that a sense of withdrawal. Because all of a sudden your communications with people you had never met but became close friends with just over text would be gone. That you would lose.
How can you be friends over text?
Trust me, you can be. And it person after person after person. I know that when Deck imploded and they threw the whole group away when I left, I'm never going to talk to these people again. I had never met them, but I had exchanged lots of ideas. And I miss those friendships that grew up. It's a different way of communicating.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And I was a deacon in my church. And at the time, there were some older gentlemen that were on the board of deacons. And then there were a couple of our people like me who were much younger. And I was trying to explain this concept to them. I remember when I first started. And I said, we have to, if this is a weekend retreat to start thinking about what's the future of our church, you have to bring this into focus. You have to go this way. And now look at most churches. They have a website. They stream their...
our services streamed online weekly.
That's right. You have the ability to have your own little subgroups within the church, Bible studies, and all that other stuff. And everything that I said was going to come true, as now 30 years later, come true. And although these guys said, you are just absolutely whacked out. You are just one nutcase. I don't even know why you're here. You're babbling.
The same point you're making, Eric Telford made in the Young Conservatives bit, which was, he was asked to set up the online part when people didn't even know his job title, he joked, was the new media, in charge of new media. And so his boss asked him, or one of his co-workers asked him one day when he was going to get to remove the new from his title, that they thought it was because he was the new guy. They just had that much of a fundamental misunderstanding of what it is he was brought there to do, and his vision was just like what you said, was to, if you have a strong vision for the future, to not let others or naysayers keep you from achieving it, and just go out and tackle it. And I think that he's making the same point that you did, which was a lot of folks didn't understand him, but he was given enough freedom to go do what he needed to do, and it pulled it off.
In fact, I've known Eric for a number of years now. I consider him one of my Samsphere blogger buddies. And this was Sam's Adam Alliance a few years ago, brought in 50 bloggers from every single state in the union, and brought us to Chicago, and for a series of workshops, just like what you're going through now, but giving us the ability to network in sort of a larger plan, talk about different things that we were seeing as bloggers. Now this is relatively new, but a lot of the state and county guys, Eric Telford is one of those bloggers that has gone big time. Eric Erickson of Red State was one of the featured speakers at that conference. He was just beginning Red State at the time. And a bunch of others that have gone on to some good level of national success. They followed their heart, they followed their American dream.
Right.
And Eric Telford came to Americans for Prosperity and said, we have to combat the left, both online as well as in a conference. He is responsible for AFP's Right Online and their online activism. And now he's moved over to the Franklin Center for Journalism and Public Policy as the vice president. But a lot of what's going on here, what happens at Right Online, is getting up to 6,000 people, and directly attributed to a blogger having a vision vision of combating this, what I consider this wrong, this sin, this untruth of progressivism being better, that we're all in this together, except only some of us get to say what's going to happen.
Get to speak, right?
Yes. Versus the founders' radical vision of we are sovereign people, it's us for ourselves, and that will, unlike the left that says, well, you're being selfish and anarchist, no. We will decide when we're going to do these things. And if we do, you have to let us do this. And if we don't, well, that's our freedom too.
Absolutely.
You've got to trust the people. You've got to trust the people. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, you have to do that. Listen, folks, we're going to have to take a break pretty soon because, to be honest with you, and I need to prep. It's been nice that you guys have dropped in.
Thank you.
I really appreciate people just walking up and just dropping in. And I don't think it's funny. 800 miles just from New Hampshire just to appear on New Hampshire Rock TV. This is irony.
It's all right.
But I appreciate you coming in. We're going to keep doing this again. I know this is the second day here. We'll be talking again in the future, Jane. And Gary, I want to say thank you for being a good guest.
Skip, appreciate it.
And folks, we are going to take a break. We'll be talking to James Cormier, who's running for New Hampshire State House in Belknap, District 8 of Alton, Gilmanton, and Barnstead. Gary, you're not running for everything, but you're being active in politics, being what, and this is becoming one of my favorite phrases, going back to Constitutional Hall when the woman asked Benjamin Franklin when he came out, what have you given us? And his response was, a republic, if you can keep it.
Right.
So full of meaning in very short amount of words. And essentially, a lot of stuff that is inferred by that, but you're doing it at your level, at the local level, which is what we need to all be doing. So, anyways, folks, we're going to be signing off here for a little bit to take a break. But when we return, we're going to be talking to the producers of Atlas Shrugged #2. Thank you, Gary. See, he knows my schedule better than I do. I watched the first Atlas Shrugged, and version 2 is coming. The second act is coming out. I read that to him, and I'll tell you something. I'll say this before signing off.
Create content.
My friend Chan Eddy, who also lives in Guilford, but runs another website called Weekend Pundit,
I think that
heard that I was going to start reading this, and he said, you need, for the first 100 pages, to make sure that you have antidepressants next to your bed, because when you do this,
that's how we will start.
you are going to go, oh my God, I am seeing our current events being foretold back in the 40s and 50s when Ayn Rand wrote this stuff, and he was absolutely correct. I could not believe it, and what we have seen since only confirms that what she was writing about socialism,
For example, one that I
communism, could take place here, and we're seeing that with what I talked about earlier, the abuses against the rule of law, and we're seeing that law coming in, and that's why we fight. But anyways, folks, for the fourth time, I'll say, we're going to take a break, and we'll be back. I'm Skip Murphy, host of Rock TV, offering from GreenrockRock.com, the Hampshire Leaps, to the blog site, and we'll be back in a little while.
Yeah, we are.
Croc TV.